I love to travel, and some people are food travelers, right? They like to eat their way across Europe, and some people are thrill seekers, and they like to jump off cliffs and dive deep in the sea. Well, I am a collector of photos that I take. I travel, and I want to find the perfect photo that will encapsulate the best things about my trip, right? I want to bring home that memory in one perfect shot. Now, I own a home, and I own 2 children, so I don't get to travel anymore. It's just, no one has any money or time for that. So I did all of my traveling when I was young, about 5 million years ago. And of course, photography was a little different back then. First of all, young people, this is gonna blow your mind. I didn't even have a phone on. I didn't even have a camera on my phone. It was a completely separate device. And my camera wasn't even digital. It shot on film. So you used to have to open up the back of it. It was very weird. And stick a roll of film in there, and then you'd close it. And after you took a picture, you couldn't look at it again. You had to wait weeks until the film got developed. It was actually kind of thrilling in its own right, not knowing if you had gotten the picture. So you might think, well, if you don't know if the photo you so carefully framed up and focused and set the aperture for, if you didn't know if that was going to come out, well then of course just take 5,000 of them, right? Like we all do on our phones. But film costs money. Yeah, so a roll of 36 costs, I don't know, $8 or something. And then after you used it up, you had to pay to get it developed. You couldn't just stick the photos on a hard drive and forget about them like we do now. So what I would do if a photo was really important, if it was the money shot of my trip, right, is I would take my one perfectly framed photo, and then I would take another safety photo. And I'd like to just change things up just a little bit. Maybe I'd turn the camera vertical instead of horizontal. Maybe I'd change the aperture just a little. Maybe I'd take a step to the left or a step to the right. And then I knew one of those photos would come out. Now, when I was about 24, I traveled to France, and I got a ton of great photos in Paris, of course. But the real goal of going to France for me on that trip was to get the perfect photo of Mont Saint-Michel. I had read about it in a book. Yeah. The internet really also wasn't a thing back then. And I had seen this photo about, this big in the book in black and white, but it looked amazing, and I wanted to get a photo like that for my wall. And then I'd also read about Mont Saint-Michel, and it has this great story. I like to think that the guy who built Mont Saint-Michel, because it was a man, I'd like to think that the guy who built Mont Saint-Michel had a sense of humor. Because it is still, to this day, one of the sites in the world of holy pilgrimages. One of the very few sites where people still go on a holy pilgrimage. But when it was built in the Middle Ages, when I guess that was a little bit more common, and yet he made it very difficult to get to. Now, some people have suggested that maybe that's because a pilgrimage is supposed to be difficult, but I just like to think he had a wicked sense of humor. Now, first of all, for those of you who don't know, Mont Saint-Michel is an island. It's about the size of Alcatraz, and it's about a half a mile off the coast of Normandy and Brittany. And sometimes it's surrounded by water, but not all the time. So sometimes it's an island surrounded by water, and sometimes it's just surrounded by sand. And so if you think about it, in the Middle Ages, these people are walking across the entire continent of Europe, and then they get to the edge of land, and then they have to swim or figure out how to make a boat, right? So a lot of pilgrims actually died by drowning trying to get to this island. But that's not the coolest way to die, getting to Mont Saint-Michel. Because the tide is not in at all times. In fact, it's out most of the time. And when it comes in at high tide, it comes in at the speed of a racing horse. So imagine you're a pilgrim, right? You've just arrived. You're like, oh, look, there's nothing nothing but sand here. I'm just gonna walk across it and climb up that wall over there, and I will get to commune with my God. And then you get hit by a tidal wave, and you get to go meet your maker in a different kind of a way. But the coolest way to die getting to Mont Saint-Michel is, say you've timed it just perfectly. You've arrived at the shore, you see the tide going out, and you're like, yes, I have weeks before I have to worry about that tidal wave. So you start walking across the sand, and you think you're fine, you're there, you made it. And then you take one wrong step into the quicksand. There are pockets of quicksand all around the island. Isn't that awesome? I didn't even know that existed in France. So I was intrigued by the story as well as by this photo, and I set our whole goal of our trip was to go to Mont Saint-Michel, to have a great time there, to get this perfect photo. And it is a little bit easier, I will say these days, to get to Mont Saint-Michel because they've put a bridge in, which is great. It is a flat bridge, so you're driving up to Mont Saint-Michel and you're looking out into the water and you see this city rising up out of the sea of grass. And there's like abandoned boats stuck in the grass because when we got there, the water was out, right? And the city, it's this medieval walled city, so it's all like gray stone, and then it kind of looks like a perfect scoop of ice cream. There's rings of the city leading up to the top where the abbey is, the monastery, and that's just this big, austere, medieval monastery with a steeple on top, but it's just this gorgeous, breathtaking sight. And then you turn onto the bridge, and it's ruined, because at the end of the bridge is the parking lot. Oh. So you're like, wow, medieval city, this is so awesome. Oh, ugly European cars. And for me, like wanting to get that photo, I'm like trying to block the cars out of my eyesight, but I couldn't. But it was still gorgeous, and we went and we parked and we walked through the walled gates and we walked around the walled city and we ate mussels and garlic butter sauce. And we drank the apple cider that they make in that area, and we took a tour of the abbey, and we learned how they get supplies up with this giant pulley system, and it was a great day. But I still needed that photo. So after the tour, my friend wanted to go explore the city more, and I was like, I am going in quest of my photo. So I headed out into the parking lot. It was really the only place I could go and get far enough away to get a shot of the whole island. I had a wide-angle lens, so it was possible to actually get the whole island in my frame. But at the edge of the parking lot, even though I could see the whole island, I could also see those freaking cars. And again, Photoshop was just not an option. I couldn't just crop the film. I guess I could have cut it, but it wouldn't have looked good. So I look around, and it's a slow day at Mont Saint-Michel. I guess all the people who wanted to go there have already died. So there's no one in the parking lot. There's no one to see me being a stupid American tourist. So I step over the rope at the edge of the parking lot onto the rocks, right? Because I'm trying to get this shot. And it's looking better now. It's definitely looking better, but I still have some cars in the corner over here. So I look around, there's still no one around, no one to stop me, no one to tell me no. So I step out onto the sand. And it's getting there. I take a few more steps and it's getting there. I take a few more steps. I got it. It's perfect. I take my photo and then I think, what if it doesn't come out? I gotta get a safety, right? So I figure I'll take one more shot. I'm just gonna step to the right and my foot goes through the ground. Oh. And I am in up to my crotch in quicksand. Oh. Merde. I froze. I held onto the camera. I know you guys were worried. And I look around and there's no one to see me, which is great, right? Because I look really dumb right now. And I quickly shimmy my left leg out into solid ground because I'm afraid that I'm just going to avalanche into the quicksand, and then I would feel really stupid as I drown slowly in quicksand. And I obviously survived. I put all my weight on my left leg. And here's the thing, I was in my 20s, so the other stupid thing I did is I didn't have my shoes tied. Oh. Yeah, because you don't do that when you're 20. So my biggest concern really was the camera and keeping my shoe on. So I put all my weight on my left leg, and as I pulled my right leg out, I just kind of twisted my foot around in this crazy dance, and the shoe stayed on. So I got back into the city with nobody having seen the idiocy of what I had just done, right? And I didn't die in quest of this perfect photo. My one leg, my one pant leg, was covered with stuff that kind of looked like a bird had pooped all over me. Like it was very sticky and thick. But people just forgave me for that. I was American. And we finished out our trip to Mont Saint-Michel. We finished out our tour of Normandy and Brittany and our time in Paris, and we flew back to America. And the day after we got back, the first thing I did was go and drop off those rolls of film to get developed. And a few days later, the call came in, my film was ready, and I went and I picked up my photos, and I couldn't wait to get home. So I sat in the car and I flipped through them, right? And I was looking for a few shots. I was looking for all the great money shots I'd taken during the trip, but I was especially interested in seeing the photo I had risked my life to get. And I finally found it. There it was. And it was okay. Frankly, I took some better photos other points in that day, but this one came with the best story. And so it was perfect.